You're listening to The Credit Pros on Real Estate Radio New Jersey with local credit experts Damon DiCrescenzo and attorney Jason Kaplan. Now, here's Jason and Damon.
People take everything so literally. How about I tell them I'm a high priest, Vatican assassin, and warlock. I'm Hitler. You know what I'm saying? Come on, man.
Well, we're back. It's The Credit Pros on Real Estate Radio Network, and I guess today we have three co-hosts. Besides Kirsten, we have Charlie Sheen in the studio. Damon, what do you think?
I think that Charlie Sheen is my hero and he has tiger's blood. And for anyone that doesn't recognize that, they need to recognize. Other than that, like I alluded to in the first segment, you have problems in your life. It's important to know that you have answers or at least options to be able to go and find out some of the different things that you can do. Debt is a problem. Agreed. Not paying your mortgage is a problem. Agreed. And it's been our experience that a lot of the specialists that are out there, just like your podiatrist or your, like Jason's dad, the butt doctor.
Gastroenterologist.
Right. Specialize in one very specific thing, as do most people in our community and specifically attorneys. I find it personally refreshing when an attorney can say, here are some options for you. You're not necessarily pigeonholed to saying that you have to walk down the road of a bankruptcy or walk down the road of a modification or whatever the case may be. And that's why I'm glad that Kirsten Ennis is here with us, and she joined us in the first segment, is joining us again. If you didn't get a chance to listen, Kirsten Ennis is with the law office in Kirsten Ennis and specializes in these areas, and her office is in Somerville, in New Jersey, and her phone number is 908-713-0345. Again, 908-713-0345. Kirsten, thank you very much again for joining us.
Oh, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about options and what that means to someone who's in distress. And I know that distress can come from a lot of different areas, but it's my experience, I'm sure you see a lot of it as well, that distress isn't in a vacuum. It normally covers all the areas of someone's financial life. And so whether it be their mortgage and their credit cards and everything else, what kind of options are available to a client?
Correct. When a client comes to me, usually there's multiple things going on, usually because of illness or loss of job or downsizing or one thing or another. But usually I will take a overview of what's happening in their lives, what kind of debt they have, is there a foreclosure, can a modification be sought? If a modification isn't available, will a short sale be an option? Will just staying in the home for as long as possible and saving money be an option? Will a bankruptcy be an option? What kind of bankruptcy? And usually it's sort of like peeling an onion. You start at one spot and move on, and you exhaust all the options in one area, and if it doesn't work, to get to your goal, then you move on to the next option.
Well, let me ask you a question then, because in today's economy, especially with my clientele, a lot of them are coming to me with problems with their homes. What kind of decisions, like what criteria do they decide whether or not a short sale is the best option, a modification is the best option?
Well, first I find out how attached they are to their home and whether it's a good economic plan for them to keep it. I lay out the value of the home versus how much is owed, and many times it's not a good feasible thing to be keeping your home when you can't afford it. You could rent for half the amount, and it's just not a good financial plan to sink a lot of money into an asset that's not going to give you the return in 10, 15 years. So I ask those questions and try to determine what a good course of action would be for them.
And it's important to recognize that in the event of a short sale, in the event of a modification, if you don't have your ducks in a row, if you don't have the information, then it very easy could be the wrong road to go down. I found, and I've been seeing a lot of these ads in the newspaper lately, and I'm glad that I think some state attorneys general has started cracking down on these modification shops, right? That all
Correct.
They want you to do is modify your home, or all they want you to do, some short sale listing places, all they want you to do is just list your home, or the bankruptcy attorney, all they want you to do is file for a bankruptcy. I find it, as I said before, refreshing that people can take a step back, take a look at the bigger picture, and all of the contributing factors to be able to make a better decision. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How long have you been an attorney?
I've been an attorney for about 20 years.
Awesome. And how about your team there in your office, which is in Central Jersey,
right? I've been practicing about 12 years in New Jersey, and I've been in Somerville for a year, was from Clinton the prior 11 years, and moved from Florida prior to there.
We talked about that, too.
Yeah, we came from Florida as well.
Right. Jason's a Florida boy.
Yeah.
Me personally, I was a transplant there.
No, I'm a Jersey girl, and that's why I'm back.
Good. Hometown girl done good. What does it cost for my listeners who, and I know if you're listening to this, you're wondering, I can't go sit with an attorney. It costs me too much money to go have that consultation with them. And I understand, because there's a lot of attorneys out there that say, okay, yeah, you want to come into my office at $399 or give me a $1,000 retainer. We can have a conversation.
No, I always give a free consultation, and many times it works into more than one free consultation. I want to have the client comfortable with their decisions and which way to go. And, time, it takes time sometimes to understand all the different variables involved, and I make sure I give that time, and so the client's comfortable and knows the direction that they're going to head.
That's awesome. I think that's huge value. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to that is some real advice. If you want to sit down with an expert attorney, Kirsten Ennis is available to speak with you. I suggest you pick up the phone and give her a ring. Her number is 908-713-0345. Again, 908-713-0345. And a great office in Somerville, New Jersey. I've been there. It's beautiful and wonderful. And I'm not really that familiar with Somerville, because I'm a Staten Island boy, for better or for worse, and I thought it was a beautiful area too. So I'm glad we gave out the phone number a little bit earlier. We have a caller on the line that has a few questions for Kirsten, and I'd like to go to them if we could. Thanks for calling the Credit Pros. Who do we have on the line?
Hi, this is Jim.
Hey, Jim, what's going on?
I'm in kind of a mess. I lost my job back in 2009, and it took me, more than a year to find a job again. But wound up paying less, and during that time, I had to use, my credit cards to pay, a lot of my living expenses. But the interest rates are now so high that, number one, I'm having a problem making the minimum payment on that.
Right.
In addition, my house has been in foreclosure for about a year on my first mortgage. I tried to apply for a mortgage modification a few times, actually, since I went back to work, but the mortgage company won't help me because they say I don't make enough income now.
Right.
My wife works part-time. She takes care of our two kids, but we're really both at a wit's end here. I'm wondering if you guys can help me.
Well, let me start by saying I feel your pain. We get a lot of this, as you would expect, and my first suggestion would be to you, as I suggest this to everyone, take a deep breath in and deep breath out. And even though you may feel that there are no options or no answers or no solutions, there are. Specifically, I'm going to ask Kirsten to answer it because this is really her area of expertise. Kirsten, what do you think?
Hi, Joe. This is Kirsten. I think there's a lot you can do. Most likely you're being denied the modifications because your debt-to-income ratio is too high. And there's multiple options that you can use. One being to start out with maybe a bankruptcy, a Chapter 13. Do you have a second mortgage? I don't know if you mentioned that or not.
Yes, I do. I have a second mortgage, and I owe $50,000 on that. The minimum payment is $425, and I have been making that payment every month.
Do you know if the first mortgage? Do you know the value of your home?
I was thinking about selling. Actually, yeah, I looked into it, and the realtor told me that the house is only worth somewhere around $225,000, but I do owe over $250,000 on the first mortgage.
Okay, so that what that tells me is in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, you could treat the second mortgage as though it were unsecured, and it's called a strip off or a cram down. In a 13, you could file the bankruptcy, get rid of your credit card debt, get rid of the second mortgage, and then file for a modification through the bankruptcy. It's called the Loss Mitigation Portal, and it's been very successful with a lot of people. they're not going to give you a modification, a conventional modification at this point because you have too much debt and you have the second mortgage and they're saying you can't afford it. So it sounds like you really need to talk to a bankruptcy attorney and somebody that has experience with the whole financial realm as opposed to just going one course and deciding to do one thing. There's multiple things that you can do.
I want to thank you very much for calling. And Kirsten, why don't you give them your numbers? Maybe you guys can touch base this week and speak with them.
Sure. My number is 908-713-0345. I'm in Somerville, New Jersey. I cover all of New Jersey.
Thanks a lot for the call today, and we really hope you get the help that you need.
Okay, thanks very much for your help.
Well, thank you.
Kirsten, can I ask you a question about this?
Sure.
Is the reason that the modification is more likely to be accepted in a Chapter 13, is that because they do the debt-to-income ratio after you were discharged or stripped down of that other unsecured debt?
Correct. They're looking at, when you fill out the application for a modification, they're looking at the debt that's existing and what your minimum payments are. And if your debt is too high, then they're going to say you're not going to be able to afford that mortgage payment, the new modified payment.
So I want to make sure that I have this clear because I am not an attorney and sometimes not that smart. So I want to make sure that I completely understand. A second mortgage is secured debt, meaning if you don't pay it, in most cases, they have a right, they have a lien, they can come and take your house, or at
Correct.
least force sale. But in this specific circumstance, a secured debt gets looked at as an unsecured debt.
Correct.
Right.
As long as there's not $1 of equity to support it, it's deemed unsecured. We file a motion in bankruptcy court, and upon confirmation, it is deemed unsecured. And as long as you complete the plan, which is usually a 3 to 5 year plan, then at the end of that plan, it will be stripped off and treated like an unsecured debt.
But the first mortgage still exists. Does this then give you leverage to perform a modification on the first mortgage?
Yes.
Well, that's awesome. It puts people in a great position.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Question for you also, Kirsten. How does a second mortgage in this situation differ from a home equity line of credit?
They're both essentially the same. It's just as long as there's no equity to support it, it will be deemed as unsecured.
So this is a very real option, and it's new to me. And I'm glad that I've learned this because I was completely unaware of it. This is a very real option for people to think about if bankruptcy has been on the table, going through this process and restructuring the debt on your home completely.
Correct. And it's essentially I'll do an analysis because a lot of times people don't have any equity, and it's the difference between them deciding if they're going to walk away from this asset or if it's a worthwhile endeavor to keep it and try to modify the first, knowing that at the end of 3 to 5 years, they won't have that second mortgage. And then in 10 years, they might have equity again.
Well, it's important.
If there are other outside circumstances, so you're dealing with the house, you're dealing with your second mortgage or a home equity line of credit like we discussed, and you have, say, also credit cards that you're dealing with, a car that you want to keep, how are those other assets treated in a Chapter 13? In
a Chapter 13, you're allowed to, in any bankruptcy, you're allowed to reaffirm a debt as long as it's not a hardship. Normally, I look at your budget to determine that you have an ability to pay and that it won't be a hardship, and then the court doesn't require a motion. The credit card debt is discharged, and the court requires that you make a minimum payment based on your disposable income. And it's a calculation done under what's called Form 22B, and it's what determines whether you qualify for a 7 or a 13, and then how much you would have to pay. So they look at your budget line by line to determine if you can afford a minimum payment to pay a certain amount to your unsecured debt.
Right. I think that's they call that the means test. You're
Yes.
able to pay.
Correct.
Right. One of the takeaways that I get from having these conversations about bankruptcy is that it is a real solution for people. Oftentimes, and if you're just joining us, we're speaking with expert bankruptcy attorney Kirsten Bienis. This is a real solution for people to get themselves out of a pickle. Last week we touched on it, but I think that it's true more now than ever that the negative connotations of bankruptcy have been going away. There's a reason for bankruptcy.
Correct. And I think it's always been, if you come to my office, I have a book. It's called Famous People Who Filed Bankruptcy.
Right.
And you can see it's a financial tool. Hershey Chocolate filed bankruptcy. Walt Disney filed bankruptcy. If they didn't have that tool, there would be no innovation. And that's what really makes this country so great, is that people can take risks and have things happen, and they're not judged for it forever. Lots of my clients come back years later. They're very successful. They've bought new houses. They've moved on. They've put their children through college. It's not the end. It's the beginning.
Exactly right. It's not the end. It's the beginning. This is why America is a great country. And because this law is on the books, it's an incentive for people to try new things, to try new businesses, to venture out and open small businesses. And instead of a socialist society where everyone is a slave to the man, you're encouraged to go and be your own person. And if you slip and fall or have problems along the way, then these protections have been put in place to try to help you.
Right, exactly.
Well, it's again, a wonderful opportunity. I know you're sitting listening to this, and you know that if you have any problems with your finances, if your debt is keeping you up at night, if you're not spending as much time with your loved ones as you want, if your job never seems like it's enough and you're working longer hours to pay the bills that seem to be piling up, then maybe you need to pick up the phone and have a real conversation with an expert attorney. Kirsten Bienis is ready to speak with you. I suggest you give her a call. Her number is 908-713-0345. Again, 908-713-0345. 0345. She's also available on the web and has a local office. The web address is ennislegal.com, ENNSLEGAL.com. Her office is in Somerville. This is the Credit Pros on Real Estate Radio Network. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions for Jason or myself about your credit, about your finances, about life in general, pick up the phone and give us a call. Our number is 973-771-5118. 973-771-5118 or on the web at creditrepair.to. Jason, what do we have after the break?
Well, we're going to do some credit true or false. I actually was reading an article, and there's a lot of things that the collection companies do that they're not allowed to do, so I thought I'd share that with you. And then, Kirsten, you forgot about Damon's favorite singer of all time. He also declared bankruptcy, Wayne Newton.
Oh, yes.
So we'll be back in a few minutes.
Thanks, guys.
For all your credit problems, concerns, or questions, call the show's off-air number at 973-771-5118 and speak to the hosts of the show, Damon DiCrescenzo and attorney Jason Kaplan, directly. 973-771-5118. This program is brought to you by the Real Estate Radio Network. Visit realestateradio.us for more info. That's realestateradio.us. The Credit Pros on Real Estate Radio New Jersey is hosted by local credit and finance experts Damon DiCrescenzo and attorney Jason Kaplan. The purpose of the show is to help consumers understand what's really going on with their credit. They're teaching you the why and the how-to, so you'll always be one step ahead of everyone else. If you are having problems qualifying for a purchase or you're tired of high interest rates because of bad credit, Jason Kaplan can help. Call Jason directly at 973-771-5118. That's 973-771-5118. Take advantage of speaking with Jason anytime you're having a credit problem. Having someone who can answer all of your questions that truly cares about you and your family's best interest is priceless. Call Jason Kaplan and the Credit Pros today, and you'll be glad you did. 973-771-5118. That's 973-771-5118, or you can visit creditrepair.to for more info. For all your credit problems, concerns, or questions, call the show's off-air number at 973-771-5118 and speak to the hosts of the show, Damon DiCrescenzo and attorney Jason Kaplan, directly. 973-771-5118.